Hello, gorgeous people. Happy Friday, March 27th. Welcome to the Astrology of April. I am joined today with my month ahead overview co-host, Alex Amorosi and Whitney Crayons. Hello, guys.
Woohoo! So
Thank
happy
you.
to be here.
Hey.
Hey, it's so weird to see you here in my Zoom room.
I know.
Wait, what do you mean? No.
What do you mean? That's a little bit of what this month is like. Jennifer Lawrence on Hot Ones with tears streaming down her eyes going, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" You know that meme?
Exactly.
That's a little bit of what's happening here this month. We're going to talk about transit by transit. We're going to go through the month of April and talk about the greatest hits. April is a month where shit goes down. Shit goes down in April. We're going to walk you through all of that. As always, these month ahead overviews are sponsored by Astrotheoros, who generously wants the world to be more aware of the astrology that's going on. Thank you, Astrotheoros. We use Astrotheoros on the show, but I also use Astrotheoros personally. It is my favorite astro software because it seamlessly goes from device to device. So whether I'm on my computer or I'm on my phone, or when my computer screen was cracked, I was using like my mom's 2008 iPad thing, or if I'm over on my Mac Mini editing videos, it doesn't matter. I have everybody's charts everywhere talking to all degrees. So no need to go back to astro.com to see my hinge date from several years ago, but I do that sometimes. It's all about learning the archetypes, you guys. It's all about balance. So check out Astrotheoros. You can use my code. It is the number 9 lives, and you can get a month free. Check it out for yourself. I do use it in client sessions. It's so good for just animating transits against your chart. You can do zodiacal releasing. You can do solar returns. They have a really cool new fixed star interface that I actually love, and I realized that there were some fixed stars I had never even thought of. Capella is conjunct my sun to the minute. What? What does it mean? I don't know. I'll have to have Gray Crawford tell me someday. I have no idea. But it's really cool to check out. So go check out Astrotheoros. We are going to be talking about the astrology of April. It's courageous. It's audacious. It's crunchy. It's vile. We get into all of that in just a couple minutes here. What do you guys think about the astrology of April? What are your main things that you're looking at and thinking about for this month?
Oh, my favorite words you use are crunchy and vile. What a month to look forward to.
Aries season.
Hey, no, seriously though, it is a really important month for us to really gather what we feel around our own personal power and the power of new beginnings, right? With Aries season.
Initiatory.
Exactly. So there's a lot of potential there, right? But the thing about this month is that there are absolutely like two separate parallel running tracks of experience that look very different that we have to live with somehow simultaneously. And we'll talk about really what that all means. But it's one to watch. It's one to be ready for. That's for sure. And we're going to tell you all about it.
Okay, so here's the way I'm thinking about this month, but it's an image. Everybody ready?
Ready.
Of course.
So I was watching the movie Bullet Train Explosion on Netflix. It's amazing. It's so good. I love
Whatever
these kind
the
of
fuck that is.
right? No,
I just
here's my
never know
no.
what's going to come out of your mouth.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You're not even ready for this. You think that's ready for this image? So they have to. It's basically like the movie Speed, but on a bullet train, right? Like they can't go below a certain amount, or the train blows up. So they keep going, and they're trying to get the passengers off the train. So they back another bullet train up to this one and like walk these passengers over to it, like going 150 miles an hour or whatever. That's kind of how I feel about this month. It's like we're going to get to the other train. We're going to be okay, but we're going to have to walk across this rinky-dink little bridge between two fast-moving trains in order to get there. And it's fast, and it's creative, and there's the possibility of some really cool stuff on the other side of it that we may have never conceived of before. But the pace of it is very, very quick. And I think we'll relatively feel quick because we've been in so much earth and water at the beginning of the year. And really since fall with all the water, and then we go to earth, and like now we're getting into some fire, and that's only going to build as we move into the summer. So I think this is going to feel like a quick, fast pace where we're trying to leap over onto another sort of track, but we have to like have some courage and maybe cross ourselves a couple times in order to do it. That sort of
Totally.
feeling, you know?
That's actually such a good metaphor. And part of what Whitney and I talked about in our year ahead overview workshop, Fault Lines and New Frontiers, is that there are a couple key months of this year where the ground is reorganizing itself. And if you take a big leap at that time, you could jump 10 leagues farther if you have like the energy and the foresight and the awareness that it's coming. This is definitely one of those months. You want to arrive to the end of April, particularly well rested, ideally, at least energized, resourced with energy so that you can be making those decisions that Alex is talking about, regulated in your body so that when it comes time for you to cross the bullet train, you're not freaking the F out. Like I'm thinking about climbing Angel's Landing in Zion National Park in Utah, which I have done a couple times in my life. It's incredible. It is a quote unquote deadly hike. People have, plummeted off Angel's Landing, primarily because it gets really crowded. But when you're up there and you're looking down at either side, you're like, but I'm totally safe, regulated. If you're regulated, if you're in sheer terror, all you're going to be thinking from the top of that cliff and those red rocks is like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I'm so high, I'm so high up, I'm so high up. If you're well regulated, it actually feels like, oh, I'm just hiking, but just higher than normal. It's like the difference of what we're talking about here. I think any regulation you guys can do, any invigoration, anything so that you can arrive towards the end of this month with the feeling of courage and the feeling of excitement and ready to respond to what's happening in your life, not from a place of reactivity, but from a place of sovereignty, something that feels authentic and that feels like you. That's going to really help us out this month. Without any further ado, should we get into these transits?
Let's do it.
The month starts really on April 1st with this full moon at 12 degrees of Libra. You guys ready to talk about this full moon?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a sneaky one because typically I feel like a Libra full moon would be like, yes, Venus, we love, but I don't know. There's something a little gnarly about this one with the moon opposite Saturn and all that.
This ties back into the new moon in Libra from October 21st, 2025, which was water trine season. And Whitney, to your point, there was something sneaky, spooky about water trine season that I don't think everybody totally expected either, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was so much heavier, I think, than we all thought. We really felt the weight of that water during that time. And so that's why I think, essentially what we have here is a Moon-Saturn opposition, Saturn being the exalted ruler of Libra, right? And when we talk about Moon-Saturn opposition, it brings up feelings to me of like, sorry to say it, but anguish, potential depression, dissatisfaction at least. But the redeeming thing that we have here, obviously, is that Venus, the ruler of Libra, is home in her other sign, Taurus. So it's kind of an interesting little juxtaposition we see, which I think really illustrates actually this entire month. Like it is a living juxtaposition of energies.
Yeah, there's like a the sneaky thing with Venus too is she's moving into a square with Pluto. She's in range of a square with Pluto as she's ruling the moon. So it's like this like what we normally think about is this diplomatic Libra full moon who's, looking for this win-win-win scenario for everybody. Might have a little bit more like fuck you in it this month. Like there's a little more like that sun in Aries is the sun in Aries, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But like the sun does not have Saturn counterbalancing it in the normal way that it does when it's moving into Aries. So you put that together with Venus moving into a square with Pluto, and it might be like, I look all nice on the surface, but don't fuck with me. There was a clip of Cher that I heard once. It was like a meme, like became a meme audio, and she said like, "I'm very nice, I'm very kind, but if you mess with me, I will tear your fucking head off."
Two cameras. So if I say this, okay. I said, he said, "You're so different than I thought you'd be, and you're really sweet, and and he said, I just can't. All the things I've heard about you, and you don't seem like you could be anything but really gentle and sweet. And I said, I'm really not. I'm very gentle. I'm really sweet. And if you with me, I'd really mop the floor with you.
And I was like, that kind of feels like what this full moon is like. Like, I'm all good until you mess with me. There's that kind of feeling to it.
Yeah, totally. I see that. I mean, Mars and Saturn are in almost exactly by degree a contra antitia here. And that exalted sun, fallen Saturn, is in aversion to both Venus in Taurus and Mars, Mercury in Pisces. So I really feel like, Whitney, we talked about this in our year ahead webinar, but I really feel like the archetypal masculine and the archetypal feminine are just not on the fucking same page. And I think we see this a little bit in like the Louis Theroux documentary that recently came out, Inside the Manosphere, and some of the things we're seeing about different subcultures. The things I'm thinking of are vile and not fit for print, but I'm thinking of the ways that the subcultural spaces of the archetypal masculine, the archetypal feminine, the softness versus the sharpness, the fuck you-ness versus the I can do that or I can help you-ness, they're just not on the same page. And in that, they are sneakily opposed because of that contra antitia there a little bit, I think. I love what's happening with Venus, and I actually even love the trine from Pisces to Cancer with Mercury and Mars both sort of still trining Jupiter. But Alex, I think that, to your point, the Aries stuff is the loudest. It feels like all this other stuff is court politicking that's kind of happening behind the scenes. And the loudest sort of like raging Aries stuff is what may be coming through as a headline during this time.
Absolutely raging. That is a good way to put it. And, you know, the contra antitia, obviously, but like with Venus also in aversion to this full moon, that's where that like stickiness comes in, and like the share kind of fuck you attitude. I totally get that too, because Venus in Taurus can actually be quite stubborn, right? And in that forming square to Pluto, which I mean that square exacts just 2 days later, right? This is like it's like almost the stubbornness in like I won't listen to you. I'm like bringing up muck from the past. So, but that's illustrative of what you're talking about, Alexandra, with like these opposing forces that just aren't talking to one another at all.
Totally. It's like, and I think also something here, it's interesting you brought up that documentary, Alexander, because I have thoughts, but we saw this weekend. But there's something here too about, the sun in Aries, because it's so powerful, there is that sense of like, I don't need anybody. I can do this on my own. I'm going off to do this. I'm going to get it done. F you, right? There can be that feeling to it. But with the moon in Libra, and like you're saying too, Whitney, like there's Venus ruling this, and she's in her home sign. Yeah, she can be a little stubborn there, but she's moving into a square with Pluto and Aquarius, which is also a communal, collaborative type of sign. It may be this type of thing where it's like you have felt like you have to go it alone, and you can't feel like you can't ask for help when you need it. Like so the compensating attitude is like, I'm big and tough and no one's gonna tell me, but it's actually someone saying, like, screaming for help on the inside. And I think like that ability to just be like, especially while the moon is in Libra over these few days, let's say like the March 30th up through April 2nd or so, is saying like, okay, what's the thing where I feel like I'm motivated, I can do it, I've got my strength, my courage, maybe a little healthy cockiness behind me to get it going. But also, what's the committee or the council that I need to rely on here? Because it's not like that. It's not like the sun in Aries can just overpower everything here. And I think that might be the feeling of the sun in Aries this year, is I can just overpower everything. It's just like, no, there's a lot of reining in forces that are happening around this full moon too. And that can be helpful for us, because it's like, you don't have to worry about asking for something that you need, or looking vulnerable, or bringing up something that's difficult, because there's support there for it.
Ooh, that's so good, Alex. And we're kind of talking about this whole opening month period now, because from April 1st through 8th, we have this series of transits that are all kind of just on the screen right now in this full moon. We have the full moon. We talked about Mercury trining Jupiter. We talked about Venus squaring Pluto. We have the sun coming into that square with Jupiter there. And then Mars sextiling Uranus. Now, all of that is tied in what you're saying, Alex. It's really reminding me of this phenomenon of when a woman kind of quietly quits a relationship. This is a trend I see on TikTok all the time where, it was some comedian, Chris DiStefano, I want to say. And he was talking with his girlfriend on a podcast, and he's like, you used to get so mad at me for this, this, and this, and you just never get mad at me for anything anymore. You just let me do whatever I want. And all the women in the comments were like, oh no, she's checking out. She's leaving. That relationship's over. Like, that's the only reason that happens. That's kind of what I feel like you're saying, Alex, in one spot. It's not that there is no wound. It's not that there isn't stuff going on. It's just that Venusian court politicking. A strong Venus can be very sneaky, can be very interior in a beautiful way and keep things inside. I think that's part of what we think of as the archetypal feminine is impressionistic, and it's interior in a way that the sun in Aries is expressive and has urges and is sowing seeds from coast to coast.
Sowing seeds everywhere.
Seeds.
It's interesting because one of the, as I was meditating over this chart for the full moon, one of the words that was coming to me was refusal, right? And I feel like that's kind of what you're talking about in that quiet quitting sort of way, right? Refusal can be public. It can also be private, right? It's how we step away, how we refuse what we just are not going to put up with, that fuck itness that we're talking about. And in that way, it's interesting because we talk about Libra as a sign of justice, right? And with this lunation in a T-square forming to Jupiter, it makes me wonder and question what is happening with leadership at this time, what is happening with the individual at this time, if we are questioning or putting our leaders to justice. There is a sense of like refusal of what is happening, right? But I also think this Jupiter T-square dynamic can also, like, on a very personal perspective, be about growing pains, right? And like the fact that getting what we want can be a moment of change, and that change is always hard, right? That's where I'm going.
Yeah, it's interesting. I forgot about that Jupiter in that powerful position there too. Because it's like, first of all, if you have a T square at the middle planet, you want to be Jupiter. We want to be Jupiter Venus. We love having a mediating, comfy Jupiter doing that, because that tends to bring a little bit more cohesion, order to those two, to the opposition of the sun and the moon. But I also think with Aries and Cancer particularly, Aries always I think of in the life cycle as conception, and I think of Cancer as infancy. There's like things that have started and are being born and are starting to emerge and need to be gently sort of nurtured and cared for and fed in a way that brings the sort of power and the hones the sort of power and what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of rawness of youth into something that feels a little bit more balanced. In other words, these are powerful energies. The sun in Cancer, the sun in Aries and Jupiter in Cancer are powerful sort of inceptional energies. And this is a cardinal T-square. Libra is a little bit more about, okay, you want to do that. That's fantastic. But here's the way we have to do that in a way that balances out for everybody so that you can do what you want to do. Like if it doesn't balance out in this way, that sort of fiery, sort of conceptual, my needs, my desire, my thought is just going to burn itself out, or it's going to become like, it's going to be too much. So I think that it's interesting here where you're moving to sort of like a very sort of political, and I don't necessarily mean collective politics, so we could definitely see that, political Libra moon that's being like, I see that you have these exceptional desires. I see that you have the desire to grow things, but here's what's necessary. Like it has to balance out against something in order to do it.
Totally. I think this is pretty fascinating to think about both of these angles. I'm going to respond to what you said, Whitney, about refusal, because I think when I think of exalted sun in Aries, particularly with Saturn there, I'm thinking of the hero's journey, and such an important part of the hero's journey is the refusal of the call. So when you think refusal, I think the healthiest expression of this refusal is refusal of the call. Is like, it can't be me. I don't want it to be me. I don't want to have to stand up for what I believe in. I don't want to have to put myself out there. Like, that's a part of the journey. I think we attach a lot of shame to that culturally. We blame ourselves for not wanting to answer the call. It's an archetypal part of the journey, is figuring out your motivation. What's going to motivate me strongly enough to take me on this whole fucking journey? That's what's going to let me answer the call. There's no need to force answering the call, right? Like people attach so much shame to that. There's also a lyric from Talk About Sowing Seeds. It just came to me, this lyric from Titus Andronicus. I think the song is Ecce Homo, and it's like, I've sown my vile seed from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and now I'm begging you on my knees, please don't make me get down and sniff it. And it's like, sorry, it's a punk rock song. But it's like a refusal. It's like, I don't want to fucking look at what I've done. I don't want to look at who I am in the mirror. And so it feels like two very different journeys. One is kind of the person who's been doing introspection and doing the work and is about to embark on this journey, self-examining, why am I refusing? What's my real motivation? And the other is this sort of lack of accountability, which is implied by Saturn, fallen Saturn. And I think this comes into sharper focus as the month progresses. We get Mars and Mercury coming into Aries. I'm going to push this forward just so we can take a look at what that looks like. Because what I'm thinking about as Mars comes in and as Mercury comes in, the moon is there with them. Look at this. This is insane. And we get a new moon in Aries just a couple days after this. In fact, I will take us to the new moon in Aries on April 17th. And we'll talk about everything that's going on here. Because all of this is sextiling Pluto. And what I'm really interested in and would love to hear your guys' perspective on, we're heading into this year where we have 2 total solar eclipses in Leo. Right now, we have fallen Saturn and the Sun and Chiron and Mars and Mercury and Neptune all in Aries. I'm fascinated by the fact that the sign of the Sun's exaltation, Aries, is in a sextile handshake deal formation with Pluto. Meanwhile, when that sun makes its way over to Leo, it will be in an oppositional relationship to Pluto for the next 18 years. Everything that happens in Leo is in opposition to Pluto, whereas everything that happens in Aries is in a sextile formation. And I feel like the story that's coming out of that for me, I talked a little bit on my show this week about it, but is a return to a raw, the infancy quality you were talking about, Alex, the authenticity, the expressive authenticity of Aries. Because Leo is the sign of the fixed fire. It's like the ruler who's always been, who always will be. There is a sense of polish there. There is a sense of rough edges being sanded down. There's a sense of convention. This is how it's always been. This is how it's always will be. Like I think obviously of the British monarchy when I think Leo as fixed fire. In Aries, how is it that that's supporting Pluto, whereas Leo is opposing it? In Aries, I think we are seeing an appeal to authenticity that has less polish. Like I follow a TikTok makeup creator, and her whole entry to every video is, for every piece of super perfect AI art I see, it makes me want to be messier. And then she'll do like a totally imperfect face of makeup. Or a lot of creators I'm seeing returning to this form of authenticity. And Whitney, to your point about rulers, when we think about what kind of rulers are appealing to us, I think there's a lot of interesting implications about the fact that we're looking for people who are authentic, more authentic than what we know we have been getting from our ruling class. it's kind of reminding me of the scene of any movie where somebody's like, I didn't know you were like this. I didn't know you had this in you. I didn't know you had this side to you. It's still them, but it's a more authentic Aries expression. What do you guys think about all that bullshit?
Oh my God, I've been like chomping at the bit, like,
Go,
let me
go,
in. My turn, coach.
You just cut me off. You guys just cut me off.
No,
I love being interrupted.
Absolutely not. It's so interesting you're bringing up this idea of authenticity and this arc that we are seeing that moves into the summer. Like Alex and we talked on the Nightlight channel recently on a Weekend Wisdom episode where we dearly missed you, my friend, about the Jupiter-Pluto opposition and that full moon that happens across those signs, and about how so much of what is happening this year collectively is, while dramatic, yes, absolutely about intense collective change of how we view rulers and celebrities, etc. And I love that you bring in this authenticity piece to the story, because you guys know that my favorite side project is Astro Style, right? And one of my Astro Style sort of trend predictions, right, for this year has been this idea of style just becoming a little bit undone. Absolutely un-Libran, like we were just talking about, and a lot more sort of Aries, Aquarius, rough and tumble, right? Like we're seeing smudged makeup come back, right? Dark smoky eyes, and we're seeing, you know, ripped and torn sort of punk rock revival happening. So I love that you referenced a punk song a second ago. I mean, as vile as that was, yes. So I just think that is such a beautiful through line. And as we're talking about sort of the infancy of this moment, that is all of this action in Aries, like that is what, if we're looking at a new moon in Aries, right? That is what a new moon in Aries is. It is newborn potential. It is a fresh start in the sign of the infant, right? And so from a practical and personal perspective, like this is a gorgeous time to boldly and unabashedly start something new that you want to grow into power. But I think the key here with that Pluto alignment, like we're saying, is that you're not faking it. You're not pretending, right? You are, sure, you can, what is the phrase, like dress for the job you want or whatnot, you know, like you can project forward, but you're not faking it here. And I think that's really important.
That's what they say. You can't put lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
But we're really coming out with like poetry today. There's poetry on this.
Giving Aries right now.
Yes.
9 Lives Astrology, everyone.
Aries edition.
It's, you know, it actually brings up what I was thinking about Aries is that immediate. It's immediate. It's authentic, and it's just like just go out. Who cares if, like, you know, this is not done or this is not done, or do you like wearing that? Fantastic. Go enjoy it. Like there's no daylight in Aries between what Aries wants and what Aries does. It's like there's no break between those two things. And I think that with Pluto, like you're saying, Whitney, and I love it, it's like Pluto demands that it's the actual truth. It's not just an impulse, but it's like, is this core level? When you look back, when you look at yourself in the mirror, can you say that this is who you are? Like, can you really know that this is who you are? Because I think Pluto always will call out that sort of like, just the pretense, especially Pluto and Aquarius. And one thing we were talking about, Whitney, on where we were talking about the Jupiter stuff coming up this summer, was the questioning of charisma, right? The questioning of, is it enough to just be like sort of charismatic and like, you know, hey, I'm kind of sexy and I can just say things and it sounds pretty good, as opposed to like, but does it have substance to it? Does it have immediate impact to it? Does it have a sense of being real and raw to it? Because people pay attention to something that's authentic. They just pay attention to it, and it doesn't require any effort to do so. It may not be like everybody pays attention to it, but people pay attention to that absent of effort. When you have to put a lot of effort into the attention, I think we've even seen that in the Pluto and Capricorn period, right? Where it's just like the influencer culture growing and rising. It's like so much effort is put into like trying to garner some type of response. This is like, if I'm just who I am and I just do my thing, that's enough. And it's easier. I don't have to put as much into it. And I just also want to say, Alexandra, what you were saying about Leo and Aries, I think is such an important distinction. Just to say very quickly that this summer, we're going to get a sense of how do we channel this through us without getting egotistically attached to it. So that authenticity, the one way to really like stomp all over that authenticity is to get attached to, oh, I'm a rebel. Oh my God, I'm authentic. Look how authentic. And then it becomes a brand, right? Then all of a sudden you become a brand. It's like Leo, that's very easy to do with Leo. Leo's about, am I still channeling that through but not attached to it? So you brought up with the English monarchy that in The Crown, what does she say? It's the monarchy that should shine, not the monarch. That's the best of Leo. I'm channeling this through me. It's not about me. And that's going to be the balance, I think, for the rest of the year.
Ooh, Alex, that's so good. I want it on a t-shirt. There's something about being existence that becomes subversive and transgressive if it's authentic. That's it. And it's not that we have done anything. It's that culture has changed around us. It's that the world has changed and the mere act of existing authentically is now subversive. It's kind of a crazy, weird thing to think about. I am so obsessed with what you just said, Alex, and I'm going to sit with that for a few hours after this today because I think that's a really empowering way to view this Aries stuff. Saturn is obviously going to be in Aries for 2 years, essentially from now until April 2028. So we have some time. And I think that especially fire sign placements, but once Jupiter comes into Leo, that's a powerful trine from one to the other. And those are two places that are very concerned with identity. All fire sign energy is identitarian and self-consuming and self-generating, but those two in particular, that'll be really rich for us to keep thinking about.
Okay, identitarian is my new favorite word. I love it. I'm using that.
I'm a literal identitarian. I'm literally, that's what I am.
You guys have never heard this before?
And no, leave it to the Gemini to educate us on words. Okay, but what you're saying about like just the fact of existence is subversive, like that's how we hold the light and the dark together, right? There are both at once, right? We know this. It reminds me, big surprise, I'm a member of the ACLU and I just got my, one of my membership stickers for this year, and it's like the sticker is like dissent is patriotic, right? And that's kind of the vibe that it brings me to, right? How standing up for what we believe when it doesn't match the standard of our ideals, that is what we're called to do. And it feels like with all of this Aries energy, this sort of birthing moment around that. And when we talk about all the fire that is to come in 2026 and beyond, it's really interesting because like this is where that all begins, just previous to this new moon, when Mars and Mercury enter Aries and we have that sign boundary lit up again, the Pisces Aries sign boundary. It's like we're revisiting these same themes that we have been now for months, but it's less in the sort of reconciliation way that I know, we've been talking about when it was so heavily Pisces. And it's more like a light a match, burn it down type of energy if it's not working. So I don't know what that means. We're in for it.
There's a definite, were we talking about last month? I think it was us. We were talking about, like, the rebel, like, the motorcycle rebel in the desert with, like, leather just being like,
Yes.
oh, and on the way out, I'm just going to throw the match,
Yeah.
just like, whatever, it's, there is that quality to this for sure. And especially, I think that we get, particularly around this period of time, so we have both the ruler of Aries and the exaltation ruler of Aries together, strongly dignifying for these few days everything that's in Aries, right? Including Saturn, which is in we know is in a tough spot right now, or at least, not as strong as it normally is.
Yeah.
There's something here too about the better angels of the hero's expression are possible, and maybe even like extreme heroism, like something that could almost be seen as like reckless, but it's heroic. There's like, I was thinking this morning on my walk, you guys, about there was this movie that came out a few years ago with Chris Pine called The Finest Hours. I don't know if you saw it, but it's about this guy in the 50s. It's a crazy story. He's a Coast Guard lieutenant who took like a tiny boat out in the middle of a massive winter storm off of Cape Cod and saved the crew of a split in half oil tanker. Like this, not like a Coast Guard cutter, like a motorboat, through this incredible waves, saved all of them and got them all back to shore. And it's like the type of thing where you look at it and go, that was either really brave or really reckless, right? Because he's leaving like his wife and his child and like all this stuff to go do something that was like insanely difficult to do, but also really courageous. And I think about, like, we don't all have to go out and save oil tankers in the middle of storms. That's not my point. But more the sense of, like, sometimes even just in our own lives, like going for something with a sense of this just has to get done. And I have to be the hero here. I have to be the hero for myself, or I have to be the hero for my family. I have to do something here that requires maybe a little more self-belief than is even warranted with the evidence, but it's the extra fuel that gets me over the finish line. It gets me towards something. It lets me know that I'm really capable. And I think that that's one of the things that we see with Saturn in Aries periods, particularly because Saturn is not counterweighting the sun as it normally does, is the heroism of the sun often comes out even more strongly in these periods of time. And I think that the ability to, even for ourselves, be like, you know what, being a little cocky in a healthy way sometimes is the little bit of like extra fuel we need to get over an obstacle, to just go out on that little bit of faith that like I can make this happen. Not being reckless, but knowing where that line is of like maybe a little healthy cockiness is okay, that it pushes me in that direction.
God, that's so good. I feel like a lot of the examples that are coming to me of this phenomenon that you're describing in my head are too on the nose, like related to combat, right? Like Lone Survivor or Deer Hunter or some of these other stories, like maybe too on the nose for us to go into deeply. A tongue-in-cheek example that came to me. An Aries example that came to me was like in Pulp Fiction when Christopher Walken's character is like, yeah, your dad died in the war, but I carried his gold watch in my ass all the way home so you could have it. Here you go.
I mean, that's a way to look at it.
Extreme heroism. Extreme heroism. Made
Sorry,
my
this
point.
was
Thank
coming
you.
to me, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the more conflict-oriented ones truly are more on point. I just think like by the time this airs and by the time we get to mid-April, I don't think we need anyone else talking about conflict in the world, But Mars, Saturn, Mercury, April 19th and 20th make this epic triple conjunction. Whitney and I did a deep dive in Scorpio season because Mars and Mercury have made 5 conjunctions since Scorpio season. It started in Scorpio. It happened in Sagittarius. It happened in Capricorn. It skipped Aquarius for the eclipse. And then it happened again in Pisces. And now it ends out here. It's interesting because every time they've conjoined, Mars has been really strong, domicile or exaltation, basically, with Mercury really pretty weak by comparison. And in some cases, like in Sagittarius and in Pisces, Mercury was literally retrograde and in detriment. So this is an end of that cycle. Definitely go check out the video that Whitney and I did on my channel about Mars Mercury conjunctions, especially if Mars or Mercury is your time lord, because kind of sneaky. If Mars is your time lord, Mercury's also been your time lord. If Mercury is your time lord, Mars has also kind of been your time lord because of this 5 conjunction series they've made. The last one here is very final. This feels irrevocable, actually. The sun is at 29 when this happens, conjunct Chiron. And within just a couple days of this, we have Venus conjoining Uranus at 29 Taurus. We'll go more deeply into the Venus-Uranus thing. Let's talk for a sec about this Mercury, Mars, Saturn mega conjunction. I mean, this is very distinctive. Yeah.
This is huge. And, I think we've been talking about a lot of these Mercury-Mars conjunctions with a through line of sort of personal power and strategizing around how we use our own power, our own force, right? It does not escape me that this triple conjunction is also sextile to Pluto. That is a running theme through this part of the month, right? And so I feel like this triple conjunction, one, is going to be very loud. We will absolutely see it, hear it, feel it, and the reverberations, right? And I think it's asking now, in addition, like, what does cultivating our own sense of personal power mean for the collective? And also those themes of authenticity that we've been talking about. Like, what does power even really mean? And how do we define it? What separates powers from one another? What separates power from weakness? And, what bounds and rules do we follow? Do we follow blindly? Do we follow through conditioning? And what this feels like to me, among other things, of course, is that there's with this being the final of 5, there's absolutely a reckoning here, but it feels like consequence of reckoning. And I don't even necessarily know what that means until we get there, but it feels like a sort of, I don't know, all of this fire that we're now fully into, it's like, what does strategic mobilization look like following all of this potential inflammation? You know what I mean? Did that make sense? I went somewhere.
No, it makes perfect sense. It's just like looking ahead at some of this stuff is requiring euphemistic language. That's what's happening.
Because it's kind of fucking scary.
It's giving WAR everywhere you look, and it's just like,
fucking call
how
to
can
arms
I say?
shit.
Yeah. No, what you're saying is making sense on both of the levels for sure. I mean, it's like, but as soon as we bring that, it's not like I'm afraid to talk about that on the channel, and I've been very outspoken about why I don't talk about this stuff. It's just like, you don't need to also hear me talk about it, and then also once we flip into that mode, it's like I'm no longer allowed to smile or make jokes,
Yeah.
And that's actually what I prefer to be doing here. So read between Whitney's lines. You're making sense.
Wow.
Follow that up,
Exactly. That's
Make
the
jokes.
point. That's what
Be
it sounds
a
like.
Sagittarian clown after that.
Let me. Yeah. I mean, it's a. This is wild. I will say, if we tell the story from Scorpio, right? If we just go back to Scorpio where this began, what's interesting to me about like that, so like you can think of that as like Mercury and Mars meeting in secret. They met in the dark.
Totally.
They met somewhere in a dark room. It's like the Three of Pentacles in the Tarot, right? It's like there's the three people meeting in the Rider-Waite deck in the sort of stoned-in enclosed room. Now, they're in the sign of the sun's exaltation in Aries coming together. And it's like what was beginning in the fall in secret is now coming out into the light, being brought out to be seen, and Saturn cannot restrain it. That's the thing that I would say with like Saturn and Aries. You know, we think of fallen Saturn as like big tough Saturn. No, Saturn in Aquarius or Saturn in Capricorn is the limit, is the wall,
Right.
is the this is it. Saturn in Aries is like does not have the same ability to contain or hold back things that it normally could. So there's something with this Mars Mercury here, if we're looking at it in the context of all of these conjunctions without telling the whole story of every chapter. The end of the book here is something that was starting in the fall in secret is coming to light now and being actioned upon and being spoken about and being brought out. And I don't know, my hopeful look on this is that the sun moves into Taurus and calms down a little bit after moving through the square with Pluto. But it is a very powerful conjunction. I think having both rulers there, dignifying it is important. But yeah, it's a very hot conjunction. A very hot conjunction in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
okay.
there's that.
How about this? When I've been talking about this conjunction in my client practice, one of the things that we've been talking about constantly over and over is coaching folks now to deal with burnout later.
Oh my
And
God,
what
yes.
we can do now, right? What can we do now to make sure that we are prepared for what's to come? And when I say prepared, I do not mean hiding in your basement with a bunch of canned goods. I mean freaking resting, caring for your nervous system, getting in touch with who you are on the inside and your own desires, and finding the people you love and being around them for better or freaking worse, because that's how we move through shit like this.
For sure, for sure, for sure. I have been coaching so many people through the concept of zones of genius, which is a whole rabbit hole you can go down. But the idea is that there are tasks that we can do that no matter how hard we work at them, we end feeling more invigorated than we began because they feed us. It feeds us to do them. Not things that we have to do, that we get a sick sense of accomplishment. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying the thing that you're so good at doing that it makes you feel better when you're done. Like when I read for a client, I'm always thinking, oh God, I'm going to be so drained after. I swear to God, I close my laptop and I'm like, what a cutie. And then I walk around my day like with little butterflies around my head because I love my clients so much. Even if I think I'm going to be drained, I never am, right? So, yeah, Whitney, to your point, this is something that when we made our year ahead workshop and in the incredible workbook, I've had clients referencing that back to me. We said, you want to arrive to February rested because some shit goes down. You really want to arrive to the end of April with energy. And it means let things slip. Don't do stuff. Let your to-do list grow and grow and grow. If it means that you're getting meaningful rest, which is not just sleep, it could be that too, but it's things that invigorate you because stuff is going down at the end of April. Stuff is happening and you want to be able to respond to that stuff, not from a place of scarcity, reactivity, stress, burnout, frantic, frazzled stray cat energy. We want to have some sovereignty and some authentic expression and some space to say, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted to happen. And, you know, put up your stop signs wherever you need to. Like, make sure that we arrive to the end of this part of this month with energy, whatever that means for you.
Well, right. And look at the creative potential here. Venus is coming into a conjunction with Uranus.
Yeah, let's go there.
And let's go there. That feels like such great, creative, hopeful, optimistic and honestly like sort of wild abandon energy, right? The fact that Venus conjoins Uranus and then they walk together over into Gemini.
Into Gemini.
It's like so cute, you guys.
Yeah. It actually is really sweet. I agree. Alex, what do you think?
Well, I always love a good Venus-Uranus aspect because they're super fun. This is Venus in her home sign having some fun. So maybe some unexpected fun.
Sure.
Euphemistic. But I think also this is not the time to get the tattoo that suddenly pops into your head. Think about it for a day. That's always that's my simple recommendation, especially Venus and Taurus with Uranus. Like any sort of tattoo, piercing, crazy haircut you're thinking of that just comes to you, maybe wait a day. Maybe wait a couple days.
But in the Taurus fashion, if it's like been in your mind for 6 years and you never have done it, that's when
read my mind.
Read
my mind, right? If you've just been like, I have always wanted for like 10 years, but I can't. Maybe this is just like, okay, just get it, But I think the things that pop into your head during these types of aspects are always ones where you're just like, just this will be super creative, super fun. The other thing I say about Venus and Uranus all the time too is if you are in an established relationship, whether it's an established friendship, romantic relationship, and you all of a sudden feel that need to be independent or free or like liberated in some way, that's another thing to just think about while the aspect is happening. That's my caveat to all of this, because Venus and Uranus can make you feel like all of a sudden every relationship is a shackle. Everything that I'm in, any relationship, friendship, whatever, is tying me down. Any commitment I have is holding me back. And it's like, it's a feeling and it will pass. But if it's something, again, to your point, Alexandra, of like, I've been thinking about this relational dynamic for a while, and these are the things that aren't working, and they need to be addressed. There might be a really cool and innovative way of addressing it, or it just comes to the surface. Like Uranus is just like, hey, here, we got to talk about this. Like, I don't like this. There's that authenticity coming, being like, I don't like this, or we need to make an adjustment here. But in general, I given everything else we've been talking about, I'll take this. Especially them going into Gemini together. That's super fun.
Yeah, I know.
Hell
I mean,
yeah.
even Alex, to your point, like wait a couple days, they'll both go into Gemini, and some brand new way to think about the situation will emerge magically into your brain. I mean, that's the beauty of Uranian thought forms, especially in Gemini. That was my experience for that first little dip. Let's talk for a moment about these past Venus-Uranus conjunctions, because Venus and Uranus conjoined at 29 Taurus last summer. Then they opposed with Venus in Scorpio and Uranus in Taurus at 29. And then they will conjoin again at 29. So this is actually an entire cycle that we're getting at the degree of 29 Taurus. So the first conjunction happened on July 4th, 2025. Venus-Uranus conjunction at 29. The opposition actually happened on November 30th, 2025. Now the conjunction's happening again. Those dates are significant to me. If you have fixed sign placements, they're probably significant to you. If you have a relationship with Venus or Uranus, just think about that. There's a little bit of a storyline here. The 29th degree is a spooky one. It's hard to Google because Google's like, everyone's going to die if you have placements at 29.
the
killing
crisis point. Yeah.
I don't know about that. It's probably a powerful end of a cycle. That's what's going on in most people's life when they have a 29. Any thoughts you guys have about the past Venus-Uranus contacts?
Well, I think that this just sort of doubles down on what we're talking about here with creative solutions, creativity in general, and how we are sort of evolving our capacity to relate, to love, evolving what we call the divine feminine and what that looks like. I mean, I know I remember that July 4th conjunction so vividly, right? Because we called it like July fireworks, and it really was. And surprise, we're going to get July fireworks again this year in a totally different way. And you know, the November 30th, that was like, again, right in the middle of these really deep water trines that we were experiencing last fall. And that's another through line of this creative generativity. But what I think is so cool about this conjunction, and then they meet again, not in exactitude, but close a frick enough in Gemini, is that it's like what we've been working through over these, you know, since last July 4th with these anaretic conjunctions and oppositions, is that like now it's growing legs, it's growing feelers, right? Gemini is not only super information driven, so we're talking about, you know, new insight, new thought forms altogether, but also like networks of communication and relationship. So I think this is really, really exciting. It's just so interesting because everything is like, this feels like liberation. It feels like liberation and defining of new truths. And it is in response to or happening at the same time as this crazy Aries action that is so fiery. And again, we're talking about like not two sides of the same coin. We are talking about two whole different forms of currency altogether.
Yeah, I like that because these are energies that don't see each other and they don't understand each other, but Uranus at least helps bridge it a little bit. You know, Uranus kind of gets you to Aries a little bit more from Taurus. But I think also something that might come up here is very simply like, where do you feel like you're trapped because you won't change? Or where do you feel like something is trapped because it won't change? Like, where have you been fixed and stuck, or maybe even held back in something that felt comfortable, even if it wasn't healthy or helpful, but it felt comfortable and familiar? What's the opportunity here to let that go? And then I think that Uranus friction feels much less abrasive. It's like, oh, you know, all I had to do was just let go of that thing from the past that felt super comfortable, or felt like it kept me safe, or felt like it kept me in the same, you know, little space where I knew what was going to happen, even if I didn't like what was going to happen. I knew what was going to happen. And now you're in Gemini a day later, you know, a couple days later, and it's like, well, look at all the possibilities now. Like, there's more possibilities than I ever thought could be there because I just let go of this one thing that I was like wedded to, that now is like, I'm done. And as I do that, flying off in a million different new directions.
Girlfriend, you're muted.
It's because I received an unexpected phone call from someone trying to access my apartment. But yeah, it's hitting too close to home. It's hitting too hard. Let's cancel the show. Let's turn it off.
No, we have to move through it.
No, but it's just like, you know, I share about this all the time on my channel. In order to maintain some modicum of stoicism in my life, I do not check my astro transits on a day-to-day basis. At the same time, I have a very strong memory for dates and things like that in my life. So, you know, when we're looking up things and I'm looking up the Uranus dates, I'm like, oh God, you know, it's like, it's actually the quote from earlier, please don't make me get down and sniff it. This is me having to sniff my own astrology when it's like November 8th, fuck. Like, I know what happened on November 8th. Because that was the day that Uranus left Gemini. So Uranus's little first dip into Gemini was July 7th or 8th, depending on your time zone, to November 7th or 8th. And the thing about that time period is that there was so much else going on during that time period. You kind of can't just take anything happening with those dates for granted there, because we had some Jupiter stuff going on through all of that. We had the air trines, then into the water trines and those oppositions. Like, there was so much going on. But that little first dip into Gemini, I totally agree with you guys. I jokingly remember saying back at the time when we first talked about Uranus coming into Gemini, we we don't even have the tools to think about the ways we will think about thinking when Uranus is done in Gemini. We don't actually even have the language, we don't have the neural pathways formed. We can't even understand it. And I think that that's maybe one of the most exciting things about what's happening. I love that it's coming over with Venus. I think this is part of where what we are speaking about when we speak about the archetypal masculine, the archetypal feminine not really being on the same page. This is kind of what we're talking about. Chiron moving from Aries to Taurus, only to zero Taurus and coming back, only to tease some new beginning and then coming back in. We've got Venus in her domicile, but in aversion to this malefic conjunction in Aries. Like, I am so with you both. This is exciting. This is creative. This is cool. And you can choose to see that stuff and engage with that stuff. And you should wait. You should do the feminine thing of holding it inside yourself. Just wait like 1 week until it all comes into Gemini and see how you're thinking about thinking, even a week from this, you know?
I think that's such good advice because we're seeing a repeating of the themes here. Yes, from Taurus to Gemini, but you also very shortly after this conjunction, oh, you read my mind, Alexandra. You get the Sun square Pluto, which is an absolute like definition of shift in perspective, right? And the idea that the reality has always been what it is, right? But a simple or not so simple shift in perspective is what it takes to understand what is actually real, what is actually authentic, and what is not, you know? You're muted now too, my friend.
I was like,
saying
Alex
something
doesn't
so
have anything
brilliant.
to say. What the?
It was so profound, you guys, but now it's lost forever.
To the mute button.
The fairy stole it from you.
It's lots of, it is. It's gone back to the cosmos. Like, we'll just have to let it go. No,
Mercury stationing today during recording helps a lot.
God. I know, please.
At least it's direct.
Over it. To the point of you don't even know what you don't know yet about thinking. I was listening the other day to a podcast about quantum computing. Like, I listened about AI, but I was listening about quantum, and I was just like, I didn't even know how to process what you're telling me this can do. Like, it was so mind-blowing, the possibilities that exist with, like, this new, which will probably be the computers of 5, 10, 20 years from now. This is what we'll have as computers. That's the type of stuff Uranus in Gemini, particularly these first few years when it's going to trine Pluto, that's the menu. That's on the menu. Like, by even 2030, our minds will be blown when we look back at 2026, 2025. We're like, it was like we were living in the Dark Ages. Like, we were living in a completely different century compared to just 4 years from now.
Totally. I mean, I think that's already happening to some extent with the ways that some of the AI creators I've seen, how they are able to impersonate other people or create videos that just feel and seem so real, appealing to the tools we have always used to discern reality. That feels a little more like the Saturn-Neptune thing. Like, Alex, what you're talking about is so the Uranus and Gemini thing of some of Annika Harris's work that I'm always referencing, where it's like we're starting to maybe suspect that consciousness is an immutable property of the universe. It's not something that comes out of us. It's something that exists outside of us. How can you even reconcile that? I mean, it's taken me a year of talking about it publicly to like get it even in my head. And those are the cool things that I'm excited about. And I agree, particularly with the trine to Pluto. I think we're going to get some disclosure. I think that's part of why those oppositions in Leo is just like, oh, hey, we're not the biggest animal on the food chain, probably, like there's a lot that I suspect is going on. And I'm excited to hear my audience theorize about it in the comments.
So we're talking about aliens,
Aliens
artificial
and telepathy.
intelligence. Yeah,
Aliens
exactly.
and telepathy. But I mean, yeah, what would be the two things in our modern culture that would destabilize our sense of specialness?
No,
Right,
telepathy is such a good pull, Alex. Because did you see what is it called? It was
The
like
telepathy tapes?
Yes.
Yeah.
This basically a podcast that explored the connection that children who are on the spectrum have, particularly with their mothers. That is totally pre-verbal, post-verbal something. It's very close to whatever we would call telepathy. Interesting podcast.
Yeah, it's the two things. Like, think about how we define ourselves as individual little special units with our little brains. But then what Pluto and Aquarius does is makes us less. Those are always periods where something that was conceived to be very special is knocked down off its specialness a little bit. It's like you're not the center of the universe, literally, and that could be with our discovery of a universal consciousness which exists, which is something I know to be true because I work with that every day. But also, like, we're not the only life in the universe. I mean, even I've said this a million times before. Even if they just discovered rudimentary evidence of life on Mars or rudimentary evidence of life under the ice cap of Europa, that completely fundamentally changes the way we see ourselves and our planet forever. And we're not just this special little, thing that's actually much part of a much bigger space, a community.
Yeah.
I fucking love this conversation, you guys, and it lights me up so much because when we talk about this idea of like, oh, you're not so special anymore, right? Like that.
Your Aquarius sun is like, I know, bitch. I've been telling you this.
What's more is that if we're not that special, that's actually an opportunity. I love how we're just like busting through any and all boundaries today. And that is that, like, it reminds me of the fact that, okay, yeah, if there's life under the ice cap on Europa, awesome. You know what else is coming to be shown through actual medical research is the acknowledgement of an afterlife, right? Through near-death experiences, right? And that back and forth through the passing of the veil, right? And so it feels like that's an opportunity to expand to expand everything that we know to be true. And expansion is always an opportunity, in my opinion.
For sure. I mean, we still have exalted Jupiter at this point. And a note that I wrote down before you even said that was like, I wonder about the implications of the energetic food chain that we're talking about in terms of people's religious dogma, how that could just quake people. And that's certainly part of what is happening with those oppositions from Leo to Pluto, too, is like when Jupiter comes in, though, Whitney, to your point, an expansion could be like an elegant solution, expanding your ideas instead of, zealously doing something else with them. Yeah, so I think that's bringing us kind of to the end of the month, We have, some at the end of this month, we have some sextiles and some trines going on, of course. I think we've kind of incorporated a lot of that into what we've been talking about. Thank you guys so much for joining me to talk about the month. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for the lovelies listening to the show?
Is it my turn? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. No, I love where we went today. I think that when we look at April and we look at the transits on paper, there is a lot of, well-warranted or not, potential to get really anxious about it, right? Because there's a lot of shit going on, a lot of shit going down, but I think the depth and breadth of our conversation today was totally illustrative of the fact that two things can be true at the same time. And when shit's going down in the world, we can be growing into the best versions of ourselves. We can be having a frickin' ball, dancing around. You know what I mean? Because there are infinite possibilities, and that's what April is showing us.
That's it.
Good job!
Speech over. I mean, who the
big
fuck knows
sigh.
at this point? Who the fuck knows? You know, I've been doing clients have asked me, they're like, what do you see coming up? I'm like, I don't know, man. We are way out beyond that.
I was just telling, like, on my thing, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going crazy or I'm becoming a bad astrologer, but, like, lately clients are like, what do you think that's going to be? And I'm like, something's going to happen. I don't know.
It's going to be there. You know, it's
Something
like a thing.
big, looks
Something
good.
big.
I don't know.
You know, I am of the mind that, you know, with the Aries this month, the highest use of it and the best use of it is really focusing on our highest expression of self and our highest motivations, and not letting the normal sort of, but can you or should you, like, you know, just knowing, discerning where it is that you can just be like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. I can try this out. And you know, yes, the Mercury, Saturn, Mars is, let's just call that interesting. Maybe that'll be my euphemism for it. But I think that also that Mercury, Saturn, Mars, for me, that's really sticking out to me is that it's the fifth chapter in a longer story. And I think that around that mid-April point is when we keep using the term revelation like portal. But I think that there's going to be a revelation. But I think that this is one where it's just like, the light is being shone on and action is being taken on that. And we'll have to see the rest that develops from it. I do love that Jupiter is still exalted. I'm not putting all the pressure on Jupiter to save us, but I think that with Jupiter in water, powerful, does bring us more good angels here than we might have otherwise. If Jupiter was in Capricorn, I don't know what I'd be thinking, but no. Good.
Jupiter gives us like
that would be a big
little...
Yeah. No, and Jupiter's doing a really productive square to what's happening in Aries. I was just thinking of benefic square as like a parent holding a toddler's hand when you cross the street. It's like, come here and hold my hand while we cross this freaking street so you don't die. God damn it. You know, it's me and my toddler. That's what Jupiter's doing from Cancer, because as we think about Aries, we think about courage, we talked about heroism, we talked about having the audacity to live authentically. I think a lot of the introspective astrology consuming audience can be self-minimizing. It can be extremely self-critical. And I would say that this month, a huge theme would be like, have the audacity to stand the fuck up for yourself, to have some self-worth, to dip your toe into a pool of confidence and just see how it feels for 30 minutes. Go to the cafe, you know, and if they get the drink order wrong, just, they know you're nice. Tell them you want what you paid $7 for. Like, it's so small. It's these small radical acts of like, taking up the space that is allotted for one human, and it's so easy to just like let it sand down over time. So I think for me, there's a lot of courage in this month on a personal level with that exalted sun. Of course, if you're an artist or you're a creative or you are making and forging and building things in this world, there's a lot of ripe energy for that too. And I would say give yourself a lot of time to rest, create, make stuff, go for it this month. Cool. Thank you guys so much for joining me to talk about this. I have an incredible time with you guys every month, and my audience loves you and I love you. Will you tell everybody where they can book incredible readings with you? I've had readings. I've had Alex help me with stuff. I've had Whitney help me with stuff. Both of them have changed my life. I talk about Alex's gravity metaphor all the time. I talk about Whitney telling me that I had a maltreated Venus and that I was going through a Uranian fixed grand cross that I didn't notice for 8 years.
Surprise!
That's a story for another time. I'm actually, Whitney, I will literally have you on to talk about that because it changed my life.
One day
where can people
soon.
find you? Yeah.
You can find me over at astroarcana.com to book said reading to see and uncover all sorts of secrets in your own natal chart and how to use them with the upcoming transits. And not only use them, but like actually just thrive instead of survive. You know, that's what it's all about. If you want to plug into my content, head over here on YouTube to at astro.arcana.astrology, where I have my bi-weekly lunation focus podcast, The House of Good Spirit. I've also got astro style content there as well. And you can head over to that same handle on Instagram to connect over there. Slide into my DMs.
Gorgeous.
You can find me at alexamorosi.com for all of my services, including doing energy work, which is one of my things. You know, it was funny, Alexandra, when you were talking about the things that light you up and fill you up, and people are like, aren't you tired after doing an hour energy work? I'm like, no. Oh my God, I'm inspired. I'm like writing down like what I did to make sure I like figure something out. Like, and reading's the same way. Like, I just love doing both. So I would love to work with you. One of the things I love about doing readings is that it gives you sort of a picture where you are. The thing I love about doing energy work is it helps you clear through the things that are coming up and work through them and move into a place where it's easier. You're more congruent with that energy. And it's just, I'm just so blessed to do this work. So alexamorosi.com, and you can also find me The Subtle Universe on Substack, where I do really mainly astrology stuff.
Alex's
on my
Substack is just insanely beautiful. Highly recommend that content. And Whitney's content, of course, as well. Mine is all on this channel. You know that. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. Let me know what you think in the comments. What are you looking forward to about the astrology of April? What are you going to use all that creative energy for? And you know, tell me your favorite euphemism that comes out of your mouth this month to like not say the thing that would nuke the room. Love you guys. See you on Monday.